when I was in my undergrad of college, I used to get Domino's pizzas a lot because there was a Domino's like right down in the city, like 1 block away from where I worked, and always on the box they would have a like a slogan on the box, and it would say, "What makes a pizza a pizza?" And they had a whole bunch of different things like, is it the crust? No, because XYZ. Is it the sauce? Because no, XYZ. Is it the toppings? No, XYZ. And what they came to the conclusion of is that it was the cheese. The cheese made a pizza, according to Domino's. And what I want to talk about today is what makes a starter ship a good starter ship. Because like every starter ship, the number one thing that you need is a quantum drive to be in the ballpark. Like a Merlin can't be a starter ship. And the starter ship also has to be cheap, or relatively cheap. But what makes a starter ship a good starter ship is the cargo bay, in my opinion. The cargo bay is the key. Because an empty cargo bay means limitless opportunity. There's so many things that you can do in Star Citizen with an empty cargo bay. And it is the gateway to a huge amount of fun, especially for new players when they get into the game. An open, empty cargo bay makes you feel like your ship is a ship, like a home that you can do stuff in. Empty space is really key. So what we're going to talk about is my recommendations for people who are getting into this game. For new players. And for the longest time, my recommendation was, if you're going to buy Star Citizen, pay $45 for it, get an Aurora or a Mustang, because you can buy them both you can buy packages for both of them for the same amount. And then call it quits. Because really, you don't need to spend a single dime more than the $45 to play Star Citizen. Maybe $60 if you want to play Squadron 42 as well. But beyond that, you don't need to spend anything, because everything you can get in game. And that's always been my recommendation. Buy it for $45, call it quits. You can upgrade from there in game. But, big but, if you do want to spend just a little bit more money, pay the $25, or depending on what ship you choose. I think that like if you choose the Mustang, you actually get a little bit more ship value, but that's besides the point. If you spend just a little bit more money, get an Avenger Titan, because it has that empty cargo bay, which is the key to limitless amounts of fun. It also happens to be a okay fighting ship. And I say okay, it's definitely not competitive, but I've made an Avenger dance in my time, and it is quite a bit of fun when you can kind of compete with the big boys in your little Avenger Titan, your little cheap, ancient police cruiser Avenger Titan. So, my recommendation as of yesterday or the day before has now changed. Because a new ship has entered the ring, and it is the Cutter, as everybody has been talking about. And this is a huge ship. Like, it's not big, but it is big when it comes to the game, because it can do what the Avenger Titan can do, with some advantages and some disadvantages, but with some advantages, and it's $10 cheaper. You can cross-chassis upgrade your Aurora to a Cutter for $15 as opposed to $25 for the Avenger. That's a big deal. Because now I can recommend, hey, when you get the game, get a Cutter and only spend another $15. Instead of $45, now you're spending $60. Instead of I think it would be $75 to get the Avenger Titan, if you want to spend that much more money, right? The Cutter is a fantastic little ship. I need to go ahead and have a caveat here. I am a huge Drake fan, and so please take what I say about Drake ships with a little bit of a grain of salt, because I am a huge fanboy for Drake. I have a Drake, I have merch for Drake. Like I have their hoodie that you see me wear sometimes that I bought like in 2014 or whatever. And then I have this Drake poster behind me. Like I'm a big Drake fan, okay? So I'm making this video. I'm trying to be as kind of non-biased as possible, but some of that bias is going to leak in. However, I will say I am a big fan of the Avenger Titan. I have flown one for a very long time. Until recently, I've owned one for a very long time. It is a fantastic ship. It still remains a fantastic ship. The cutter by no means edges the Avenger Titan out of the market. Because they both do very different things. And in many cases, you could say that the Avenger Titan does most of those things better than the cutter. Most. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and talk about Star Citizen ships in general, just for just a second here. So when it comes to Star Citizen, if you think of all of the ships in the game kind of being little parts of this macro organism that is the ships of Star Citizen, what you'll find is that there's a spine. There's a spine that goes right up the back of this organism of ships, okay? And all the way at the top, you have, say, ships like the Caterpillar and the Hercules Starlifter, which have these huge empty cargo bays. And that's what makes up the spine of this like creature of spaceships. It is ships with empty, limitless opportunity cargo bays. It goes Hercules Starlifter, Caterpillar, all the way down to ships like the Avenger Titan and the Cutter. In between, you have the Cutlass, you have the Corsair. I was actually just checking out the 400i today during Origin Day. The 400i kind of fits into that bracket a little bit, it's a cool ship. But the most popular ships in the game, this is what I'm saying, the most popular ships in the game, such as the Mercury Star Runner and those others, the Corsair and others, they are these ships with empty cargo bays that are just limitless opportunity kind of things. And that is what people are looking for in a ship, okay? The reason the Cutter is such a big ship is because it has that empty cargo bay, and it is the cheapest one out there. Until now, the Avenger Titan has been the cheapest one. It has now been edged out. It has been flanked from behind by the Cutter now. Which is why my recommendations for what ship to buy as a new player has now changed from the Avenger Titan to the Cutter. It's a good little ship. So we're going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about some kind of the basic advantages versus disadvantages. The Avenger Titan has way better armament than the Cutter. The Avenger Titan has way better maneuverability than the Cutter. The Avenger Titan has double the cargo capacity of the Cutter. I want to say that the Cutter's slightly faster. I don't know what the max speeds are. Let's check that out real quick. Does it have it here? Specs, maybe? 160 on the Cutter. Max SCM speed. This doesn't tell us a whole lot right now, by the way, but it does matter for the when they change the flight model, because it'll mean which one's just faster. The 260 meters per second on the Avenger Titan. So the Avenger Titan is faster in a straight line, a lot faster. So the Avenger Titan is faster. It's more maneuverable. It's got heavier firepower. It's got double the cargo capacity, which just, it makes it seem like the Avenger Titan's leaving the Cutter in the dust, right? So what does the Cutter have going for it? Well, it's $10 cheaper. That's nice. But also, and this is something I keep coming back to when I talk about all these different ships, access. Access to the cargo bay on the Cutter is way better than the Avenger Titan. In the Avenger Titan, you have this little bitty cargo ramp in the back. And like when your character actually walks into the Avenger Titan, they have to duck their head a little bit to get in. Like, because it's kind of you kind of have to, It's short. It's, you know, you gotta have to be nimble to get in there. It makes loading and unloading, which isn't a big deal right now, but in 3.18 it's going to be a big deal. Loading and unloading a pain with that 8 SCU of cargo space. You can fit a Dragonfly and I believe some Noxes into the Avenger Titan's cargo bay. It's a tight fit, but it works. I've done it before. You can't fit a Dragonfly in the cutter, but you can fit a Mule, and you can't do that in the Avenger Titan. Because the Avenger Titan, if you don't have a super tiny silhouette ship, like looking from the front, silhouette ship, you just can't park it into the Avenger Titan. Or I should say vehicle, not ship. You just can't park it into the Avenger Titan because that access is so bad, right? But on the cutter, look at this huge cargo ramp. See? You can park a Mule in this thing. Now, it takes up most of the space. It's kind of a tough fit, but you can park a Mule in this thing. That's really cool. That gives you a little bit of flexibility with what you do with the ship. Because a Mule has a closed environment inside, which means you can drive it around on heavy weather planets and get from place to place and carry a little bit of cargo with you. That's very utility. And that's what you need to think about when you think about the cutter. The cutter's not going to fight. The cutter is not going to be able to run very well compared to the Avenger Titan. It probably won't be able to smuggle very well compared to the Avenger Titan. But it's very utility, and Drake is utility. There's my Drake bias coming through. So we're gonna go ahead and do a walkthrough. We're gonna talk about the Avenger Titan. And then we're going to talk about the cutter in-game. I'm not going to be flying them because the Avenger Titan just blows away the cutter in every aspect. And plus, the game right now is very unstable because it's free fly week. But we're going to talk about just what you get when you get one of these ships. And then I'm going to leave it in your hands. You know, if you're a new player watching this, what I want you to know is these are both great ships. These are both fantastic ships. And I'm already going to tell you, I'm going to recommend the cutter at the end of this video. Why? Because it's cheaper. That's why. Because you don't need to spend more money than you need to, or than the cutter on this game. The Avenger Titan is still a very valid choice because you can do so much. You can do different stuff with it. Okay. You can also get it in game. The Avenger Titan is very cheap to get in game. The cutter is also, by the way. So just getting that Aurora starter package and working your way up to a cutter, easy. Not bad. It's not hard. But if you want to spend a little extra on the game and help out Chris Roberts, buy another diamond-studded toothbrush, then getting a cutter or an Avenger Titan, both are pretty good, solid choices. So we are going to go ahead and switch over to the Avenger Titan walkthrough. All right, so here is the Aegis Avenger Titan. As you can see, the Titan is a really sleek ship. It's got it's referred to lovingly by Star Citizen players as the Space Penguin, because if you put it on its back, it looks like a penguin. It has the 3 guns up at the front and some missiles on the wings. Here's that back loading ramp. You can see that it's pretty small. And then as we circle around to the front, you get a view on the other side. And as you can see on the very front bow, there is a very convenient cockpit entrance, which is really nice. This is a fantastic thing that the Avenger Titan has that the cutter does not. Makes much easier ingress for the ship, which is very important. If you're on like a planet side and you're getting shot at, having this entrance is really useful. So now we're getting a good view of the cockpit. It's very unobstructed, which a lot of people like quite a bit. As I turn up flight ready, you can see that the buttons are not they're not labeled at all. So you kind of have to look around a little bit. You can't rely on any labeling, but the hood is pretty good. As we get out of the seat, we start walking around in the back of the ship. Most of this stuff here is just useless right now. I think eventually you're supposed to be able to open up like a suit locker or some kind of storage locker here. Kind of similar to how the cutter has, and we'll talk about that later. Here's the bed. There's a component, looks like a component access or storage bin behind the bed. And then now we will enter into the cargo bay. Here in the cargo bay, you can see it's a very thin cargo bay. It does fit a Dragonfly. It stores 8 SEU. And now we're going to go outside of the ship. And as you can see, very small ingress point. Very poor access for a ship that has 8 SEU cargo. But overall, Avenger Titan is a very fantastic ship. And here we have the Drake Cutter. The Drake Cutter, you know, when you load it into the game, it just feels a lot smaller than the Titan, which is interesting. But obviously a much different styling aesthetic. The Cutter is not sleek by any measure. It's kind of, similar to a lot of other Drake like aesthetic details. It looks like a flying brick. Some people love that. I kind of like that, but a lot of people don't. That's fair. The large thrusters here, very similarly to the Cutlass, they can rotate for landing configuration or parallel with the ship for flying configuration. As you come back up to the front of the ship, you have a very clearly labeled fuel port, which is nice. That's very convenient. And you can see those two little guns on the very front. They're kind of like pea shooters. The cargo hatch has 2 different positions to open it on either side, and you have to be at just the right distance to open the hatch. So it took me a minute. The buttons on the Cutter seem to be a little clunky right now. But here's that really well accessible cargo bay. It's smaller than the Avenger Titans, but it's a little bit fatter, and that helps it to store vehicles as opposed to Gravlevs. Although I think some Noxes, I think you could fit a pair of Noxes in here. I could be wrong, but I think you can. I love this touch of the little viewports on either side of the ship. Having windows in your cargo bay is really useful and helpful, and it adds to a better gameplay experience. Here's some shots of the cargo bay, just so you can see that real quick. As you come forward, it takes a minute for the doors to open on the ship, partly because the server's lagging so hard during free fly week. Also, I'm having trouble getting the lights to work in these compartments, but they do work. You have a toilet over here in this section. You have to hit the button, not the little thingy. And this is a nice little area. Then over here you have the bed. The bed actually has a little light that actually works. It's supposed to be a reading light. That's kind of nice, but you have to be lying down in the bed to actually get it to work. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to lie into the bed, get it to work. It'll take me a few minutes. You know, at the end of the day, this isn't a super important feature, but it's kind of cool, right? There's the reading light. So it's nice. Again, not an important feature. It's probably something that, you'll never use, but it's cool that it's there. Over here, you have an accessible cargo port. This is how you access the ship's inventory, which is really nice. It's nice to see that touch being added to the ships. Right now, it's not working super well. I don't know. It might just be buggy. And then over on this side, it looks like you have some kind of food station or storage. I'm still not exactly sure what this is for. All right, now we're going up to the cockpit. So here's the cockpit. You're going to have trouble with the light here. And I turned off the light by accident. There we go, finally. Now, you have a gun slot there. You have your pistol slots there. And then the bigger one is actually a spot for a special weapon. We're now getting into the cockpit of the cutter. And here we are. takes a lot longer to get into the cockpit of the cutter than it does the Avenger Titan, because the Avenger Titan has that nice, easy ingress point. As you can see, all of the controls in the cutter are clearly labeled. And you can't see it well right now, I guess, but when I'm about to zoom in, there we go. And you can actually see that each one of these, so you can see coupled, G-Safe, ESP, cruise, and up above you see power, engine, weapon, shields. Those all work. Those all work properly, so it's pretty great. And then also it has this really cool little canopy shift. As a great sci-fi movie once said, power windows. Props if you can figure out what that sci-fi movie is. You have some obstructed view here in the cockpit, but overall it seems pretty good. You have those two struts on the sides. And then here you can actually see just some exterior views of the ship, which I didn't do for the Avenger Titan, but that's okay. And back to the video. And welcome back. So now I'm just going to talk about some final conclusions between these two ships. So if you are looking to get into a scrap, you have to be thinking about where your ship falls in the grand scheme of things. And it's not like you have to prepare to fight the most competitive dogfighter in the verse. It's more like you have to think about what percentage of combat encounters can your ship get you through. When you're in the cutter, that percentage is very low, because the cutter, compared to the Avenger Titan, is slow, it's not maneuverable, and it's going to have trouble getting away, and it doesn't have any weapons, essentially. It has the two-piece shooters on the front, but in the grand scheme of things, that is essentially nil, okay? The Avenger Titan has an okay armament with the 3 guns, especially the front. I forget what it is. We can take a look real quick. It has looks like 2 size 2s, gimbaled, and 1 fixed size 3, I think. That's a reasonable amount of firepower. The cutter, on the other hand, only has the 2 size 2s. And are they gimbaled? I don't think that they are. Yeah, they are gimbaled. They're gimbaled size 1 stock, but it's a 2 fixed size 2s is what you can get there. So that's where we're at. I will say that the Avenger Titan has gotten me through, not totally competing in, but through a fair amount of scraps. The Avenger Titan's a good ship. You can do a lot with it. You can be really nimble with it if you practice and you try. But you will never compete with the heavy dogfighters in Avenger Titan and Avenger Titan. Because at the end of the day, it's not competitive enough. It has been overshadowed by the Arrows and the Gladiuses and the Sabres and all of those other ships. The Avenger Titan is a $55 essentially starter ship. You are getting the 8 SEU cargo space, though. So you can do a little bit more fighting. PvE, the Avenger Titan's way better. PvP is what I'm talking about. PvE, you can kill some stuff in the Avenger Titan in PvP, or PvE rather. So it's great for that. You want to do those early bounty hunting missions? Oh, they're great. You can do that in the Avenger Titan. You're going to have trouble with the bigger stuff. Once you get to the higher tier bounty hunter missions, you're just not going to be able to run them in an Avenger Titan. When you're starting to have to fight hammerheads and lots of really large ships that your lasers are going to have a really tough time eating through. But you can do much more than you can with the cutter, is what I'm saying. Your cargo capacity is doubled, so you can do more cargo hauling if you're into drug running. The Avenger Titan's pretty good for that. And it's fast and it's maneuverable, so you can get away from stuff, which is really great. Is the Avenger Titan a better ship overall than the cutter? Well, no. And really, the reason for that is because of the access. And it's kind of crazy, because if the Avenger Titan had more access than the cutter, I couldn't I don't know if I could sit here and tell you that there were any advantages to the cutter besides the $10, the $10 difference. But the access is there for the cutter. You can fit a mule in it. You can fit a enclosed canopy ground vehicle in the cutter. And that's a big deal for being able to go and explore planet side, for example, on moons and planets that have really tough atmospheres. Sure, you can bring along a expensive suit that protects you from those environments and fly around in a dragonfly if you take the Avenger. Sure, you can do that. But then you're risking that really expensive suit. And the way that the claims system and the insurance system works, it's a little bit better to take a cutter and a mule than it is to take an Avenger and a dragonfly. Plus, fitting that a dragonfly in the Avenger is a little bit tricky. I will say that. So, the access in the cutter is king. Even though it has less cargo space, you have much better access. It means you can also load and unload your cargo much easier. So, if you're wanting to do cargo, I would actually lean cutter because you can load and unload cargo. If you're looking to do a little bit of fighting and maybe you're more into the mass cargo game, then Avenger. But neither of these ships will ever do cargo very well, and neither of these ships will ever do fighting very well. What these ships are for is getting you from place to place and maybe bringing along some utility to go with you. That is the point of these ships because of the empty cargo space. So they're both great. They're both really great. And one is cheaper than the other, which is why at the end of the day I recommend the cutter. Because it's cheaper. You don't have to spend any more money than you have to on this game. And if you spend a little bit extra than the Aurora, or than buying the Aurora, the cutter is the next best fantastic place to upgrade to that forms the very bottom base of that spine that underpins all of Star Citizen's ships. So, anyway, I hope my ramblings have helped you to decide if you're looking at both of these ships and you're like, do I want one or the other? I hope that these my comments have helped you in some way. But you can't go wrong with either of these ships. Whatever you decide, you cannot go wrong with either of these because they're both great. Personally, I love the cutter. I'm a big Drake fan, but the Avenger Titan in many ways is superior. It is more expensive. So, anyway, this is Boldheart signing off.